Hi, my name's Sabi Ahmed, and this is my fitness portfolio and presentation. So this presentation is my full fitness portfolio for the semester. To start, I want to explain the purpose behind the physiological assessments we completed. The assessments helped evaluate my overall fitness and physiological capabilities. Things like how my cardiovascular system responds, how strong I am, and where my metabolic health stands. They also help identify my strengths and weaknesses, so I know what areas need improvement. Another reason we do these assessments is to establish a personal baseline. For me, this baseline shows exactly where I start in terms of body composition, strength, aerobic fitness, and power. Most importantly, these assessments guide safe and effective exercise prescription, meaning that they show what kind of training I personally need to improve in a smart, structured way. In this project, I completed four main categories of assessments: anthropometrics and baseline measures like BMI, blood pressure, and heart rate, cardiorespiratory fitness through field and graded tests, body composition through skin folds, hydrostatic weighing, and the bod pod, and musculoskeletal fitness through strength tests, sprinting, vertical jump, and the Wingate anaerobic power test. These categories together give a full picture of my health, performance, and what my body is capable of right now. On this slide, I'm covering my health screening results. For this project, I completed 2025 PAR-Q screening, which is basically the first step in determining whether someone is safe to begin exercise testing. For me personally, I had no yes responses on any of the general health questions. That means I didn't report any conditions or symptoms that require medical clearance first. Because of that, I was fully cleared for physical activity and able to move forward with all of the fitness assessments in this portfolio. The whole purpose of doing this screening is to identify any risk before beginning exercise testing. So this step confirms that I can safely participate in moderate to vigorous physical activity, including the labs we did in class. Continuing with my health screening, this slide covers my health history questionnaire. First, I reported no history of cardiovascular, metabolic, or pulmonary disease, which means I don't have any chronic conditions that would limit exercise testing. I also don't experience chest pain, dizziness, or shortness of breath during daily activity, which is important because those symptoms would indicate potential cardiac or respiratory issues. I have no significant joint, bone, or orthopedic conditions that limit my ability to exercise profoundly. Or drastically. So I was able to perform all my assessments without needing modifications. There is no family history of early cardiovascular pulmonary disease, which lowers my overall risk level. I'm not currently, my medication currently isn't affecting my exercise response too significantly as of right now. So that means my heart rate and blood pressure measurements reflect my natural physiological state. In terms of lifestyle, I'm a non-smoker. My stress levels are moderate, and I maintain generally healthy habits. Because of all these factors, I officially cleared for the exercise with no restrictions, allowing me to complete all components of the fitness portfolio safely. Continuing Continuing with the health screening, this slide focuses on my exercise pre-participation health screening findings. First, I reported no symptoms such as chest pain, dizziness, or breathlessness during activity or daily life. That's important because symptoms like those would indicate higher cardiovascular risk. I also engage in regular moderate physical activity, meeting the guideline of at least 30 minutes per day, 3 or more days per week. My workouts typically indicate lifting and light cardio and sometimes heavy cardio through basketball. Next, I have no history of cardiovascular, metabolic, or renal disease, which further supports that I fall into low risk category. Because of this overall profile, no symptoms, regular physical activity, and no chronic diseases as of right now, medical clearance was not required for me to participate in any of the assessments we performed. Based on these factors, I was officially cleared for moderate to vigorous exercise, meaning I could safely complete all strength aerobic and anaerobic tests included in this fitness portfolio. Now moving to anthropometrics and baseline measurements. My height is 5'8" and 3/4 inches, which gives context for all my strength and power numbers later on. My calculated BMI is 37.2, which places me in the obese class 1 category. BMI doesn't tell the whole story because it doesn't separate muscle from fat, and I do carry a lot of lean body mass, over 155 pounds, but it still indicates that I have excess body fat relative to my height. My waist to hip ratio is 0.90, which falls in the moderate cardiometabolic risk category. This measure is important because it reflects where I store fat. A waist to hip ratio close to 1.0 suggests more abdominal fat, which is more strongly linked to cardiovascular and metabolic disease risk compared to fat stored in the hips and legs. Together, these numbers give a good snapshot of my baseline health status and help explain why improving body composition was one of my major goals going into these assessments. Continuing with my baseline data, here I'm showing my cardiovascular measurements. My resting blood pressure is 135/80, which places me right at the cutoff stage for stage 1 hypertension. My mean arterial pressure came out to 98.3 millimeters of mercury, and my rate pressure product was 88,640, which gives an estimate of the workload on my heart at rest. For a heart rate, my resting heart rate was 64 beats per minute, which actually falls in good to normal category. My estimated max heart rate is 196 beats per minute, and based on that, my target training zones are between 118 and 157 beats per minute, which represents 60 to 80% of my max. Physiologically, all of these measurements are important because they help predict my metabolic, cardiovascular health, resting heart rate, blood pressure, waist to hip ratio, and BMI all act as indicators of workout workload on the heart, fat distribution, and overall disease risk. Even though some of my values show elevated risk, they also highlight exactly where I can improve and how training will benefit me. Now I'm looking at how all of these baseline measures tie into my metabolic and cardiovascular health. First, blood pressure. MAP and RPP all reflect the pressure inside my arteries and how hard my heart has to work even at rest. Because my values were slightly elevated, it shows that my cardiovascular system is under a bit more workload than ideal. Next, my heart rate of 64 helps show my autonomic balance and cardiac efficiency, even though some of my other numbers suggest higher risk. My resting heart rate being in a good range, shows that I still have decent parasympathetic control and my heart isn't overworking at rest. My BMI and waist to hip ratio provide insight into fat distribution and overall metabolic disease risk. With BMI in the obese range and a waist to hip ratio of 0.9, that suggests more central adiposity, which associated with higher which is associated with higher cardiometabolic risk. When you combine all of these measurements together, they help assess my overall risk for hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic disorders. This gives me a clear picture of where I currently stand and also highlights where my lifestyle and training improvements will make the biggest difference for my health. Next, this slide summarizes my cardiorespiratory fitness based on two assessments, the Astran cycle test and the forestry step test. Starting with the Astran cycle test, I was working at a workload of 600 kilograms per minute, 600 kgm per minute, and my steady state heart rate reached 152 beats per minute. After applying the age-corrected formula, my estimated VO2 max came out to 34.6 millimeters per kilogram per minute. For a male my age, which is 24 years old, that falls into the poor to fair classification range. For comparison, we also did a field test, the forestry step test. My post-exercise heart rate on the test was 162 beats per minute, and the estimated VO2 max from the protocol was 43.3 millimeters per kilogram per minute, which places me in the average to fair category. Together, these two assessments show that my aerobic capacity is developing, but there's still room for improvement. The difference between the lab test and the field test also highlights how protocol type and modality can affect VO2 max estimation. This slide goes over the criteria used to confirm whether someone has reached a true VO2 max and then what that means physiologically in my case. First, the VO2 max criteria. A true VO2 max is indicated when several things happen together. Your heart rate is near your maximum, which for me would be close to my estimate 196 beats per minute. Your RER is at or above 1.0 to 1.15, which reflects a shift towards anaerobic metabolism. Your RP is 18 or higher, meaning you're working an extremely high perceived effort. And finally, blood lactate levels reach 8 to 10 millimoles, which shows that the body's relying heavily on anaerobic glycolysis. Even though we didn't measure all of these directly, these are the physiological signs we expect when someone truly maxes out during aerobic testing. Now, in terms of physiological explanation, VO2 max reflects how well I can transport and use oxygen during exercise. It also represents my aerobic metabolic capacity, meaning how efficiently my body produces energy using oxygen, and it provides insight into my overall cardiovascular efficiency, including heart function, blood flow, and the ability of my muscles to extract oxygen. This criterion concepts help explain where my aerobic fitness currently stands and the factors and what factors contribute to improving it. This slide summarizes my body composition results using the site skin fold method. First, my body fat percentage came out to 34.8, which classifies me in the obese category, meaning 25% or higher for men. Even though the number is elevated, it also tells me exactly where I'm starting from and what I need to work towards. My lean body mass was 155.6 pounds, which is actually a strong number for someone at my body weight. It shows that underneath the fat mass, I already have a solid muscle base, especially considering my lifting and athletic background. Now for the physiological explanation of what this means for me. Having a higher body fat level affects my metabolic efficiency, meaning my body has to work harder during movements and daily activities. These measurements place me at a higher cardio metabolic risk, including things like hypertension, insulin resistance, and long-term cardiovascular issues. And finally, the excess fat mass impacts my endurance, speed, and movement efficiency because I'm carrying extra load during everything I do, whether that's running, lifting, or even completing graded exercise tests. This section really highlights where my starting point is and why improving body composition will have a major effect on both my health and performance moving forward. Now I'm looking at my musculoskeletal fitness results. This section gives a really good picture of my strength, grip, sprint power, and overall neuromuscular performance. Starting with strength, my bench press one rep max was 265 pounds, which gives me a relative strength score of 1.06. That means I can lift a little bit more than my body weight when adjusted proportionally, which is good considered my during my current body fat percentage. For my squat, my estimated one rep max was 402 pounds, giving me a relative strength of 1.61. That's actually a really good, that's actually a strong score that shows that my lower body strength is one of my key performances. Next is hand grip strength. My right measured at 49.5 kilograms and my left 47.5 kilograms. Those numbers are well above average for adult males my age, which reflects strong forearm and overall upper body neuromuscular function. Then for horizontal power based on my 6.3 second 40-yard sprint, my estimated power output was 552 watts. While the sprint time itself is slower, the power output indicates that I still have the ability to generate force. It's just limited by my body weight and body composition right now. These results show that my muscular strength is a major asset, and even with a higher body fat percentage, I'm still able to produce solid power numbers as I reduce weight. These numbers would likely increase significantly because my relative power and acceleration would improve. Continuing with my musculoskeletal results, this slide focuses on my explosive power and anaerobic performance. Starting with vertical power, my counter movement jump was height was 21 inches, which corresponded with an estimated power output of 6,295 watts. That's actually a very high power value, and it matches well with the strength I showed in my squat. It suggests that I have a strong, fast twitch muscle fiber recruitment even at my current body weight. Next is my Wingate anaerobic test, where my Peak power was 1,139 watts with a relative peak power of 10.1 watts per kilogram. That shows my ATP PC energy system. Basically, my short burst, high intensity power is functioning at a high level. Now, for the physiological explanation, the combination of my squat numbers and my CMJ height shows that I have a strong, fast twitch fiber involvement and good neuromuscular coordination. My Wingate results also confirm that my anaerobic power output is one of my biggest strengths. At the time, having a higher body mass increased is the energy cost of sprinting and jumping, which is why my raw power numbers look great, but my actual sprint time is slower. The data shows that I produce a lot of force but as I reduce body fat, my speed, movement efficiency, and fatigue resistance will improve dramatically. Now that all my individual assessments are covered, this slide summarizes how everything fits together. Starting with my strengths, I showed very high absolute and explosive strength, especially with my estimate 402 pound squat and my 21-inch counter movement jump. Those indicate strong neuromuscular output and fast twitch fiber recruitment. My anaerobic power was also excellent. My 1 gig peak power was 1,139 watts, which is a strong indicator of ATP PC energy system capacity. My grip strength at 49.5 and 47.5 kilograms was also above average for my age group, and even my VO2 max was lowered by my body weight. I still determined my solid I still demonstrated solid cardiovascular effort with values between 34 and 43 millimeters per kilogram per minute. Now for my weaknesses. My body fat percentage of 34.8% is the biggest factor reducing my performance. It lowers my relative power, slows down my sprinting and running economy, and increases the energy cost of movement. My blood pressure at 135 over 80 puts me in stage 1 hypertension, which increases cardiovascular strain during exercise. And because VO2 max is measured relative to body weight, my higher mass naturally lowers the final score, even though my cardio effort was solid. My endurance, sprint performance, and anaerobic efficiency are all limited by mostly my body composition. The overall summary is that I have a very strong neuromuscular and anaerobic profile. My strength and power numbers are clear strengths, but my anaerobic metabolic efficiency are affected by my current body compositions. The good news is that because my foundation of strength and power is already high, reducing body fat would dramatically improve almost every category, and strength to would improve almost every category: strength to weight ratio, jump height, sprinting, VO2 max, and cardiovascular health. On this slide, I'm showing my strength results visually so it's easier to compare to my absolute and relative values. On the left, you can see my absolute strength chart. On my bench press, 1 rep max is 265 pounds, and my estimated squat 1 rep max is 402 pounds. The difference between the two bars highlights how much stronger my lower body is compared to my upper body, which is consistent with my training background and natural biomechanics. On the right side is my relative strength chart, which divides those numbers by my body weight. My bench relative strength comes out to 1.06, while my squat relative is 1.61. And that shows that even at a higher body weight, my lower body strength is proportionally very high. It also reinforces the pattern we saw earlier. My strength foundation is one of my biggest athletic advantages. These graphs make it clear that my absolute strength is excellent, but my relative strength will improve dramatically as I lose body fat. Here, here I'm showing two more components of my musculoskeletal fitness: hand grip strength and vertical jump height. On the left, you see my hand grip strength results. On the right, you see my vertical jump height. Here I'm combining my cardiorespiratory metrics, body composition, and normalized power outputs. On the left is my VO2 max from the Astron test, the step test, with my resting heart rate, body fat percentage, and then on the right, my vertical jump power, sprint power, and Wingate peak power. Based on my assessment results, here's my individualized exercise prescription using the FITT principle. For frequency, I'll be training 4 to 5 days per week. The intensity will be moderate to vigorous range, targeting 70 to 85% of my maximum heart rate. Each session will last 30 to 45 minutes. For type, I'm combining interval running and cycling for cardiovascular component along with lifting sessions that focus on both strength and hypertrophy. My first SMART goal is to increase my VO2 max by 10% in 8 weeks, mainly through structured interval training. My Second SMART goal is to reduce my body fat from 34.8 to 30% 12 weeks using combination cardio and resistance training. And my third SMART goal is to increase my one squat rep from 402 to 425 pounds in 10 weeks by applying progressive overload. For my reflection, here's what I learned about my physio physiology from all of my fitness assessments. First, I found that I have a strong anaerobic power shown Wingate peak of by my Wingate peak, my counter movement jump, and my squat. All of these indicate that I perform very well in short explosive movements relative to my body mass. Next, I learned my aerobic capacity's moderate needs improvement. I also learned that having 34.8% body fat increases my cardiovascular workload and reduces movement efficiency, which affected my speed, endurance, and power output over time, which affects my speed, endurance, and power output over time. And finally, my resting heart rate, 64 beats per minute, is decent, but still improvable is still improvable with consistent training and aerobic work. I can get it much lower. Continuing my reflection, I also connected my results directly to lecture concepts that we learned in class. First, my data clearly reflects high fast twitch fiber recruitment and strong contribution from the anaerobic energy systems that matches what we learn about explosive power relying heavily on ATP PC and PCR and fast glycolysis. Second, my VO2 max aligns with my VO2 max aligns with lecture topics about oxygen delivery, stroke volume, and limitations in cardiac output. My moderate VO2 max shows that while my heart and lungs can work efficiently, there's still room for improvement in endurance capacity. Next, my higher body fat percentage connects the concepts we covered about increased metabolic costs, reduced movement economy, and higher blood pressure and heart rate demand during activity. Essentially, carrying extra mass makes my body work harder for the same movements. And finally, my strength results demonstrate lecture principles of motor unit recruitment, neuromuscular adaptation. The heavy lifts I can perform show strong neural drive and high threshold motor unit activation, which we talked about repeatedly in class. Now, tying everything together, here's how my results inform both my health and my performance going forward. First, improving my aerobic training will help raise my VO2 max and lower the cardiovascular strain I experienced during exercise, which with a higher aerobic capacity, my heart rate won't climb as quickly and I'll be able to sustain effort for longer. Second, reducing my body fat will make a huge difference in my efficiency. Lower body fat will decrease energy costs with movement, reduce my heart rate response during activity, and support long-term better health overall. Third, my strong anaerobic profile shows real potential for power-based and strength-based performance. My Wingate score, my jump height, and my squat numbers all indicate that I have strong, fast twitch recruitment, high peak power output. And finally, balancing strength work with more aerobic conditioning will help me optimize both sides, my health and my athletic output. Improving conditioning will help keep my strength high while making me a much more well-rounded and efficient mover. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I'm sorry it got kind of long. I try to shorten as much as possible while hitting all the criteria, but I do hope it suffices. So thank you.